Every empire believes it will last forever. The Romans believed their empire was divine, eternal. The British said, "The sun never sets on our empire." The Americans today speak of global leadership and destiny. Yet history has one constant truth. No matter how powerful, how rich, or how advanced an empire becomes, it always falls. And what's more interesting is this: empires don't collapse because of their enemies. They collapse because of the same hidden pattern that grows inside them. It's not swords or guns that destroy empires. It's the mathematics of power, wealth, and greed. This is the story of how civilizations rise, how they peak, and how economics silently brings them down. The birth of power. Every empire begins with struggle. Hard times create unity. Unity gives birth to strength. And strength, when organized, becomes empire. The people work hard. They build, they fight, they expand. In these early years, the empire's focus is clear: survival and growth. Its economy is real, productive, and disciplined. Every coin earned comes from labor, trade, and innovation. Look at Rome. It began as a small republic fighting for survival. Or Britain, a rainy island that built ships and mastered trade. Or the United States, a young nation of inventors and dreamers. At this stage, empires believe in values, in honesty, effort, and innovation. They reward merit, not privilege. And because of that, they rise fast. But that rise plants the first seed of decay, the comfort of success. As power grows, wealth floods in. The empire expands its reach: more colonies, more trade, more money. But with comfort comes complacency. The leaders begin to enjoy their luxury more than their duty. The citizens begin to expect prosperity as a right, not as a result of hard work. The economy shifts, from producing to consuming, from building to buying, from saving to spending. Wealth becomes concentrated in the hands of a few. And while the upper classes grow rich, the working classes begin to struggle. The gap widens, silently but steadily. History shows this clearly. In Rome, senators and elites owned most of the land, while farmers sank into debt. In Britain, industrial wealth turned into aristocratic privilege. In America, corporate empires began to replace individual innovation. This is the first turning point. Prosperity turns into excess, excess into corruption, and corruption into decline. The hidden shift, when money replaces value. Here is where economics begins to quietly kill empires. When a nation's currency becomes stronger than its labor, when speculation replaces production, and when profit becomes detached from value, collapse becomes inevitable. In the late Roman Empire, emperors debased their currency. They mixed silver with cheap metals to mint more coins, to fund wars and luxuries. The people noticed, prices rose, trust fell. Inflation destroyed the Roman economy long before the barbarians arrived. In 18th and 19th century Britain, debt soared as the empire fought endless wars and maintained colonies across the world. The industrial base weakened while the financial sector grew, a pattern we recognize even today. In modern times, the same pattern reappears. Debt outpaces production, consumption exceeds creation, and the empire begins to borrow from the future to maintain its illusion of power. Every empire falls when its money loses its meaning. The empire of debt. An empire can survive war, plague, and invasion, but it cannot survive endless debt. Debt begins as a tool for growth, to build roads, armies, and trade routes. But over time, it becomes a habit, and then an addiction. The state borrows to fund wars. Then it borrows to fund luxuries. Then it borrows simply to survive. Soon, interest becomes the new tax. Soon, interest becomes the new tax. And the debt becomes so large that no amount of taxation, production, or conquest can repay it. Rome printed coins. Britain borrowed from its colonies. Modern nations print digital money, believing technology will defy economic law. But history doesn't care about technology. It only cares about balance. When a society spends more than it produces, the end is already written. The price of power. Every empire that grows large enough eventually fears losing control. And to prevent that, it turns to the military. At first, the army defends. Then it expands. And soon, it occupies. But military expansion is expensive. It drains the treasury. It demands loyalty from soldiers and obedience from citizens. To pay for it, the empire raises taxes, prints money, and borrows even more. And as the economy weakens, the empire tightens its grip on speech, on dissent, on freedom. The state becomes the largest consumer, the largest employer, and the largest debtor. Rome's legions once protected its borders. Later, they drained its wealth. The British Navy ruled the seas, until its cost drowned the empire in debt. Modern superpowers spend more on maintaining dominance than on the welfare of their citizens. The pattern never changes. Empires fall not from weakness, but from the weight of their own power. The division within. As the economy decays, society begins to fracture. The rich grow richer, and the poor grow desperate. Politics becomes polarized. People stop believing in common values. They only believe in survival. This is when empires rot from within. They lose the unity that built them. The trust between government and citizen evaporates. Corruption is no longer a scandal. It's a system. Bread and circuses, that was Rome's solution. Distract the people with entertainment while the empire burns. In every era, the pattern repeats. Spectacle replaces purpose. Consumption replaces creation. Noise replaces truth. And once the citizens stop caring, collapse becomes unstoppable. The moment of collapse. Empires rarely fall in a single night. They decay slowly, then suddenly. At first, the currency loses value. Then institutions lose trust. Then leaders lose legitimacy. And finally, the people lose faith. When faith dies, empires die. For Rome, it was the sack by the Visigoths in 410 AD. But the empire had died in spirit long before that day. For Britain, it was the Suez Crisis. The moment it realized the world had shifted and its power was over. For the Soviet Union, it was 1991, when its economic illusion could no longer sustain the political reality. The signs were there all along: debt, corruption, arrogance, inequality. But no one listened. The illusion of modern power. And now, today, the pattern repeats again. The global superpowers spend trillions on weapons. The global superpowers spend trillions on weapons. Yet their citizens drown in debt. They print money endlessly, believing they can outsmart history. But the mathematics of power never lies. The currency grows weaker, the social fabric tears apart, and as before, the empire begins to turn its power inward, on its own people. What follows is always the same: economic crisis, political division, and then collapse, followed by a new order rising from the ruins. The lesson of history: empires don't die, they transform. The ashes of one civilization become the soil of the next. And those who study history can see the pattern forming again today. The question is not if another empire will fall. The question is when. But the deeper question, the one that truly matters, is this: will humanity ever learn? Will we continue building empires that collapse under their own greed? Or will we finally build one based on balance, wisdom, and restraint? Because history does not repeat itself, people do. And the fall of every empire is, in truth, the fall of man's discipline, and the triumph of his desire. The echoes of power never fade. They whisper through time, warning us that strength without wisdom, and wealth without morality, will always lead to ruin. So as we watch the world today, the wars, the debt, the division, we must ask ourselves, are we witnessing progress? Or are we watching another empire quietly writing its final chapter? Empires rise, empires fall, but the pattern remains eternal. History is not just the story of the past, it's the mirror of the present. Those who refuse to look into it are doomed to repeat its mistakes. This is the story of humanity's greatest illusion,